Another way of looking for bargains is to harness the fact that sellers very often are lazy. They think they're going to sell and they don't put a lot of effort into making the sale work. And one way they do that is by just uploading bundles, bulk lots. So here I've done a search for NES console. If I look through the categories, sometimes you'll see bulk lots in here if it matches. Generally, we've always got access to this wholesale and job lots category. So if I look in there, there's not very much for an NES console. But remember, people are lazy, so they may not have written NES console, or they may have NES console, but because it's a bulk lot, it may not be in the title. So I'm going to do a search for that in-house wholesale job lots for including description. Nothing came back. So maybe they've been even lazier. And what I'm going to look for is games console in the description for wholesale job lots. And you can see what comes back here is a lot of this is relatively cheap for stuff. And if you know what you're doing, I don't want the games particularly. So I'm going to look for that search term directly. So now I've got 36 results here for bundles of stuff. Right, here is a very lazy seller. They've just gone just a bunch of stuff, comics, Star Wars, there's a kind of mini console in there, and they've put a price on. And you can see that's got 5 days left. No one's bidding on it yet. Chances are no one's noticed because it's just so generic. Who's going to search for Retrobox? Now, if you get in the habit of knowing roughly what you're looking for, figuring out ways of making it more generic, so an NES console is a games console, then I can scroll through this and I might get lucky looking in the wholesale job lots. So try it with the title, then include description. The other thing we can do, I'm going to take out description there. So I'm going to say NES console, put it onto everything. But I'm going to use our advanced search knowledge now, and I'm going to say NES console with collection, or bulk, or bundle, or set, or job lot. Now over time you can build up your own conception of what people use for this. If I do a search for that, so we got 333 results for NES console. With our advanced search we get 42 results. And you can see here that it's actually bringing back bundles, which very often don't sell as well because either the postage is too high, people buying it already have a lot of stuff that's in the bundle, or it isn't specific enough that it's come up in people's searches. So looking for bundles is very useful. Also, if you're looking for a specific item, NES console is quite big. If I was looking for a particular game in there, I'm just going to open this, pick one of the games and do a search for that. So let's do a search for Gradius. Now this isn't going to pick up NES, so let's do a search for Gradius, NES, see what happens, include description. So the reason I'm including description is that I'm trying to be more specific about the thing that I want. So there we go, we've got 17 items come back. Now a lot of this is very generic. Now what's interesting is that item that we saw in the last bundle wasn't even there. Now that could be because the person listing it hasn't listed the games. You see, this is how you actually get bargains. This person has been particularly lazy doing their listing. Therefore, they've just relied on a picture. Which is why, I mean, I've had bargains like this. I got Ninja Cop, a Game Boy Advance game, because I knew what it looked like. I knew what it looked like in the picture, and I was doing a very high level generic search for bundles and collections, and I saw it in the picture. Here, this probably isn't going to sell very well unless people notice it. It has the advantage that it's in the right category, so people browsing the category will see this. And people might do a search for games bundle. I very often do search for like games bundle. So if I go back and do the search, rather than look for NES console, NES games, and I want to do a search for games, if I take the quotes off here, it'll do a search for games and it'll include game as well. So if I do NES games bundle, then we actually start to see job lots that include game bundles. This is quite an interesting one in that this is very mixed. this may not sell for as much as it possibly should because it's mixing a whole bunch of different consoles together. Again, the seller would have got more if they'd split this up and listed them individually, but the seller was lazy, so they've bundled it together, and that's going to cut down on their ability to sell, which opens up the possibility for bargains for us. The key here is to use the more advanced search terminology to look for bundles, to be very specific in what we're looking for, but to identify the lazy way that people might have listed it. So generic terms, games, comics, books. I bought a huge bundle of horror books at one point because I just said horror books bundle. I didn't want to collect it, so I made sure there was postage in there. I got a big box of books that was really good, had some relatively rare ones in there for enormously cheap prices because I was using this exact thing where, so I was relying on the seller being lazy. They used a very generic term, they listed it, no one else really bought it because no one else was really paying attention. They didn't want to go through and look at the photos to see what books were listed because people like to rely on the text. We get bargains when sellers are lazy, provided we know how to build search terms that will find them.